Hello everyone, I'm Santiago, and today I'm gonna be testing the Batman Arkham franchise on the GeForce GTX 1050 Ti. For performance monitoring, I'll be using CAM. If you want to download the software, there's a link down in the description. And if you want to support me, there are Humble and Amazon affiliate links down in the description as well. I'll be doing Batman Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, Arkham Origins, and finally Night. If you want to skip to any of those particular games, just check the timestamps down in the description. So well, first of all, we start with Batman Arkham Asylum, and I'm going to be using 2560 by 1440, so just 1440p, and I'm going to be using the maximum settings, including physics. This will be the only game in the series which I will use physics, since here it's not broken, for saying it some way. In the other entries it just makes it a stuttery mess, so that's something to keep in mind. And it's kind of funny because in the options menu it says if you put physics on high, that you need a 9800 GTX Plus, which is a very old GPU. You can also do 4K on this one if you want, but you'll be between 50 and 60 frames per second without physics. So in order to have better stability, I decided to use 1440p, so we stay at pretty much 60 frames per second. But you'll notice that there are some stutters when I'm just running around. That's because the game is just loading new assets as I move forward, but it doesn't seem to be so efficient. If you turn off physics, it helps a little bit, but it's not really a huge difference. But yeah, so far this one runs at 60 frames per second, no problem. I talk to you again on the next game.
You are taking out ASAP. Looks like you're a bargaining chip. Gotta tell you, the boss is all over this job. Planned like a military operation. Friends on the inside and out.
I am quite aware that this job, as you call it. No, please, no! No! What's going on?
Don't worry, Doctor. I rescued you first, and now I'll search the other rooms. You wait here. It's dangerous out there.
Will all patients please
There is still more medical staff that need my help.
to their accommodation?
Our findings have led to debates about whether psychosis is in itself neurotoxic, and whether potentially damaging changes to the brain are related to the length of psychotic episodes. Project Titan allows us to strengthen the individual's ability to cope with such changes. Early results were promising, but it was only after the arrival of Patient X that our expectations were raised. Patient X was the catalyst that led to a full-scale adoption of the Titan process. We must all thank our benefactors for this opportunity.
We represent all medical specialties and offer a wide range of medical, surgical.
It's the back!
Cash, what happened?
There was an alarm in medical. I heard someone shouting and found the doc lying on the floor. When I went to help him, the room was flooded with gas. These doors locked down. We can't get out. Don't know how long we can last.
How brave. Let's give Mr. Cash a great big hand. You.
Joker's filled the room with gas and we're trapped in here. I can sit in here all night, but the doc over there ain't looking too good. There, man. I don't know if you can hear this. Board showing power to fan 1.
Dead by now! Hurry up, will you? See what this stuff does?
Power to fan 2. He's doing it, Doc. We'll be out of here soon. Stay cool. All 3 fans are green. We got full power. Room should be empty anytime now.
Nice surprise. Batman arrives just in the nick of time. Next time, Cash, I'll just shoot you. Be done with it.
Batman!
What the hell? Get down there, boys. See if you can detect being punched in the face. That's the best you got? You hit like an old man. That all you have? Best. What are you waiting for? April Fool's Day? Get down there now! You want somebody?
Now I'm testing Batman Arkham City, and on this one I'm doing once again 1440p with FXAA high. For some reason FXAA on this one looks pretty good, so I recommend you use it if you want. And well, this one was the first in the series to use DirectX 11, but DirectX 11 wasn't as usual as nowadays. So DirectX 11 doesn't perform optimally, that's why I turned it off. You have HBAO and tessellation with DirectX 11. I don't think that makes a huge difference visually, but it makes the game stutter a little more than usual. So I recommend you avoid DirectX 11 stuff unless you're on 1080p, but it's still not perfect. That's why I recommend avoiding it just for the sake of stability. And on this one I also turn off physics because here it's broken, at least for me, it breaks performance. The game just stutters a lot, especially when flying around, but the rest of the things are maxed out and you get 60 frames per second pretty much all the time with some drops every now and then. Like on the previous game, when you get some stutters while just moving around, because there are new assets being loaded from the hard drive, and this game doesn't seem to handle that optimally. So yeah, I'll talk to you again in the next game.
Here! We're gonna hurt you, bat freak. We'll kill you, bat freak.
Arkham City, square. Die.
Now I'm testing Batman Arkham Origins, and I'm going to be doing once again 1440p. And you'll see that here I'm using a little higher settings than on Batman Arkham City. That's because here it seems that DirectX 11 is better optimized. So the only thing that I had to lower in order to maintain over 60 frames per second all the time was ambient occlusion. I lowered that from DirectX 11 Enhanced to normal, and that gave me over 60 frames per second all the time. And I also turned off physics because here it's not a stuttery mess like on Batman Arkham City, but it's a noticeable performance impact and it's kinda random. So in some boss battles you might see a difference in performance in open world in very specific places. So if you want to experiment with it, I will just disable the DirectX 11 Enhanced features, just lower that from DirectX 11 Enhanced to the previous option and try physics and see how it goes. But yeah, so far at 1440p, this is over 60 frames per second all the time, or most of the time. You'll just see drops below 60 when you are doing a finisher on the last enemy, but you're not in control of the game when that happens. That's because of the very expensive depth of field option that just shows up when you just hit the last enemy in slow motion, which again, you're not in control of the game, so I don't think is relevant. But yeah, this one again runs totally fine. I'll talk to you again on the next game.
This can't be. It's him! Did you see that? He's here! I got him! I got him! Gotcha! Hey! Here it comes! Get in on that fight! It ain't like me!
And finally, Batman Arkham Knight. I'll be doing again 1440p, but also 1080p because this one is the most demanding one of all of them. And well, at 1440p I'm using textures on normal, shadow quality on high, level of detail on high, motion blur enabled, and texture filtering on 16 times anisotropic. The rest is just turned off because chromatic aberration looks horrible, film grain is kind of annoying, and the NVidia GPU Boost features are a big performance hit or make the game stutter more than it already does. And well, so far there were over 30 frames per second pretty much all the time. I saw a couple drops here and there when you're destroying a lot of stuff while going very fast with the Batmobile. Nothing really too bad, it's still totally manageable. And then when I switch to 1080p, I'll show you the same texture quality, same shadow and level of detail quality, but this time I enable anti-aliasing, which seems to be just some cheap post-processing solution. But in this game I just use textures on normal, because the game stutters a little less than if I use textures on high. I know I have enough VRAM, but it seems to be limited by the memory bandwidth or something like that, because with textures on high I get some more stutters. Very annoying because the game already stutters quite a bit. But well, this game stutters by default. That's how I really describe Batman Arkham Knight. You should have more than 8 GB of RAM. The game stutters a little less, but it's not fixed. Also, an SSD is a good idea, because when the game is just loading new assets, it makes it way quicker, so the game just stutters less. And well, again, lower textures to normal, and that should help out. Also, a 60 frames per second cap wouldn't hurt it too much. But yeah, this one wasn't a good PC port to begin with, but you can do some stuff in order to make it a better experience. So yeah guys, that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.
Why'd we bring all these civvies in on the op? That Riddle guy, the Brit, wild dogs, all of them. So I tried one of those question mark games they have around here.